Today on the Solar Podcast, we dive into residential solar with Zach Witt, the owner of Ilumen Solar. Welcome to the show, Zach.
Hey, Tim, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
The Solar Podcast is brought to you by Continental Energy Solutions, and we normally talk a lot about commercial, industrial, and utility scale solar. So it's kind of a treat to get to dive into residential solar. And you and I got to know each other through the ISEA, the Illinois Solar Energy Association, which is very active here in Illinois. And we're grateful for all their great work on legislation and the industry at large. And Illinois is typically known as a greenfield up until 2017. And now for the last 3 years, we've had a lot of growth of the industry. It is a boom and a bust. So we're going to talk about that. But first, Zach, tell us how you got interested in renewables.
Well, let's see here. I went to school at Montana State University, studied entrepreneurship and business management. Always knew I wanted to start a business, just wasn't sure what. I studied some wind projects at school, which is really cool out in the Montana area. So I already had the bug at that point, and then when I moved back to Illinois about 2012, I realized that there just wasn't a lot of renewable energy going on here, and I was a little frustrated about it. And, obviously we saw a lot of the big storms coming about, a lot more hurricanes, a lot more forest fires. And the whole mentality I had was if if I don't get involved and do something about this, who will? And obviously, there's a lot of people out there doing it, but it was one of those things where I wanted to just take charge and do something for a purpose and help turn things around for the better. And solar was just an up and coming thing. And, I dove right in really without knowing anything about it. It was one of those just crazy ideas of, hey, I'm going to start a solar business and just figure it out. So here we are, 4 or 5 years later, and it's been really, really fun, and I love every minute of it.
Excellent. That's one of the cool things about solar is there's so many mission-driven professionals in the industry. It's a mix, of course, like any industry, but here at Continental, certainly the vast majority of our employees are passionate for the energy transition. We recognize that we're at a critical moment in really humanity's history. It's a very unique time, and it's wonderful to be able to combine our work, our daily income, our breadwinning, and helping to reduce the risk for future generations. We're not going to save the planet. The planet Earth is going to be just fine, no matter what humans do. But it really is about saving our butts and making a future that is much more resilient, reliable, and safe. So let's talk about residential and light commercial solar, which is your specialty. Tell us about Ilumen. How did you decide to go out on your own, and what are you up to?
All right, a lot of questions there. Where do I start? So residential solar is a way to make a lot of small changes in the community. So you're really helping the homeowner make their own positive change in their own little bubble, have an economic impact on their household. And a lot of our customers see it as they're changing the household for the better. Their kids are learning about solar. Their life is a little cleaner, and it's just an exciting thing to put a power plant on someone's house that's powered by the sun. So residential solar is, I would say, our niche right now. We're really like a boutique developer for residential solar and commercial as well. But really with this Future Energy Jobs Act, we focus on residential. It was really the low hanging fruit with what we could accomplish out in the field. And we specialize in, I would say, a more white glove approach to the residential solar game. We really want the installs to look good, have a really clean install, high quality equipment. And when we're designing a system, we don't think about what's it going to look like today or in 5 years. We really think about what is this going to look like aesthetically and how is this going to perform 15 years from now when they go put their house on the market, and that realtor takes a drone shot and sees that there's no conduit all over the roof, and it's all black panels and it's nice and symmetrical as much as possible. So we take a lot of pride and care into making it look really good, because at the end of the day, we want other people to look at that house, other neighbors in that region or community, and say, hey, that solar looks really good, we want it on our house. Because I think there's some of that stigma where solar looks bad, looks ugly. We're trying to change that. And I think that's an important part of developing and installing residential solar.
I would agree. Aesthetics are very important. Uh, the the curb appeal, so to speak, of residential solar is very important. Now, let's break down for our listeners exactly how Resi Solar impacts a customer. How do you approach new customers with the value proposition?
Yeah, so w- we try to have more of a consultative approach to our clients. There's plenty of different options on how to adopt solar. We always recommend the cash purchase as a number one choice for our clients. About 90% of our residential business is from a cash purchase. So someone that's giving us their life savings or pulling out a line of credit or something like that. And the reason we recommend that is they're avoiding financing dealer fees. They're getting the quickest return on investment. They're not going to have any future issues if they, move in 5 or 10 years, if they have a lease or a financial agreement tied up with their house or something like that. So we're consulting on the financials on the upfront, and then primarily educating, hours and hours and hours of educating, walking people through how everything works. It's just new to everyone. So the basis of our business is educating and promoting solar. So whether someone signs on board with us or not, we're letting people know how it works and making sure that they can make an educated decision prior to going solar or not. It's not for everyone sometimes. So
Yeah. And so what is the impact though for a homeowner? I mean, let's face it, a lot of Illinoisans do not know anything about solar. It's very new. We don't see it yet in the landscape. Of course, now we are starting to see residential solar around most neighborhoods, and you're going to start noticing these community solar projects that are 10 and 20 acre solar farms. And then next year, you'll start to see some much bigger projects, but they're few and far between. So, how do residential homeowners understand the impact of solar?
are you talking about financial impact?
Yeah.
Or yeah, okay. So financial impact on the previous, well, this FEJA, Future Energy Jobs Act, the impact was quite big. We had that program and then the federal tax credit. So the state incentive was anywhere from 30 to 40% of the system cost coming back in the form of a check about 12 months after they install. So that check could be anywhere from $6,000 up to $16,000 for a larger system. And that's just a plain old check coming their way, which is a really, really cool incentive. The other one is obviously the tax credit. So it was previously 30%. Hopefully that goes back up this year with the new administration, but this year was 26%. So what that homeowner owes in tax liability, they can reduce it by 26% of the total system cost. So at the end of the day, their net cost for the system is going to be a small fraction of what they paid, and the return on investment could be anywhere from year 6 to 8 is where they break even, and then after that it's all gravy. We typically see a homeowner save about $1,000 a year by going solar on average.
Yeah, I like to kind of start with, okay, today you might have an energy bill of 100 to $150 a year. You install solar. Solar is making electricity from sunlight, and so it's reducing the amount of electricity that you have to buy from the grid. So there's energy to grid, I call that, right? Which you could offset maybe 40 to 75% of a customer's bill. You'll never offset 100%, right? Because they still need to be grid tied and have grid services, and solar only works when the sun shines and so forth. Um, But that energy to grid is in commercial solar, it's around 20% of the system's value over 5 years. I don't know in Resi if you have a ballpark figure for how much of the savings come from that just pure energy savings.
It could be probably up to 95%. So that customer charge you're referring to is about $15 per month. So if we are a 100% offset on a residential client, um, we can, through what the program net metering, where you push and pull electricity with ComEd and get credits, we can get 100% offset, and they're paying about $15 per month. So how that net metering works is you get a bulk of your energy production in the summer, and you're sending a lot of energy back to the grid. In our territory here with ComEd, they're going to give you a dollar for dollar credit on that production, that overproduction, and you're basically going to slide that over to use that in the winter. And then that's how you even everything out throughout the year. So that's another huge financial benefit for solar in our region.
So we have energy to grid as a primary savings. Then we have the incentives that you mentioned through FEJA. Those are something called SREC, Solar Renewable Energy Credits, and that's a cash incentive here in Illinois that we have, which is 30 to 50% of the project's value coming back to you in year one for residential, right? That's a very generous incentive, and
Mm-hmm.
that's really jump started the industry here in Illinois. Lots of developers and installers moving into the state. Then you have the tax credit that you also mentioned, which is currently 26%, which is very generous. That is stepping down unless we have a change in Washington, which is conceivable with the Biden administration coming in January. I
Mm-hmm.
know that extending the ITC is certainly a hot topic in Washington. So we just have to keep an eye on that. In residential, I mean, in commercial, that's stepping down to 22% next year. Is that the same in residential?
Same in residential as well. Yep.
Yeah. And then I think it goes away the year after that if nothing changes. In commercial, it steps down to 10% after that. But crossing our fingers for an extension at 30%. Actually, it was 30% for many years, and it's quite possible we go back to that. That cash, I mean, that tax incentive, the ITC as it's known, is like cash. It's a credit. So if you have a tax liability at all, then you can utilize that, and it's a very generous incentive. So we got energy to grid, the cash incentives from FEJA. We have the tax credit, the ITC. Are there any other ways that residential solar will save a customer? In other words, any other ways that it helps speed the payback period?
No, that's the primary three. So yeah, the
Yeah,
tax credit, the SRECs, and then net metering. So those are
yeah.
the three. Yeah.
So you buy a system. What is the cost of a residential system? The typical system in Illinois is what, 7 to 8 kW? Is that right? Or
Yeah, it totally depends. It could be, yeah, 7 to 8 kW up to, 15.5 kW DC is
Mhm.
the small DG block, the residential block that most clients fit in. And that's for that lump sum payout in FEJA. So when we analyze a system, a lot of people give us their square footage and this and that, but it really boils down to how much energy you consumed in the previous 12 months. And then we take that 12 months consumption, we design a system to match it with 12 months of production, and hopefully we line up at 100%. It's not always the case, but that's our goal.
Yeah, and here I'm sharing your landing page at illumenpv.com, ILUMENPV.com. The other consideration is the roof, right, Zach? Because while we're trying to offset 100% of the customer's electric load with solar, and it's certainly doable, we have to work with what we have in terms of real estate. You want a south facing roof, or an east west could work as well. But like on this roof that you see here, there are constraints. There are chimneys and vents that are coming out of the roof. And so you can't just put solar anywhere. But in a best case scenario, we're offsetting 100%. And in Illinois, the typical size is, like we said, 7 to 15 kW. What is it? What is an average cost though? Do you do that per watt, or do you just say, oh, it's about $20,000?
Yeah, I'd say it's about the average purchase price about $25,000, I would say.
So it's like buying a car.
It's like buying a car for sure.
And you can pay cash, you can get a loan. Most banks are familiar with solar now, and you can get an equipment loan. And then you're paying the system off. Because of these incentives, the ITC and the SREX, you're cash positive in year 6, right? 6 to 8.
Hmm.
And then you're just getting clean, free energy from sunlight, as long as the system is well maintained and operational. And you're vastly reducing your power bill. So, as you said in the opening, you're saving 900 to $1,000 a year. And you're cleaning the grid. So it's a win-win, right? It's money in your pocket of savings, and you're helping to clean the air for all of Illinois. We're in the transition away from coal and natural gas to wind, solar, and battery storage. Those are, you know, the three most affordable sources of new energy on the grid now nationally. And that's, a growing trend. What are the other considerations that homeowners need to think about? Is, the roof condition a factor?
Yeah, roof condition is definitely a factor. So we like to work on a roof that's about 10 years old or less. And if we need a roof replacement, we work with roofers, trusted roofers that can handle those projects. We also, we're one of the handful of installers that will even move vent stacks. If there's a plumbing vent stack in the way and they need a re-roof anyways, we'll go move that stack to make sure the solar looks nice and pretty. um, we also want to take note of where the equipment is going to land, either outside of the house, inside of the house. Some homeowners prefer the inverters inside, some prefer it outside. Depends on installing it, which makes sense there. So, how the conduit run is going to fall. That's something we take very, very seriously. Is how is that conduit coming down from that system? So 9 times out of 10, we're going to be hiding that conduit in the attic, making sure it's out of sight. The only times we can't do it is when we physically cannot do it, if there's not an attic space there or it's just too tough to do. And then when that's coming down from the roof, is it going to follow a downspout? Is it going to follow a natural corner in the house? We want to minimize the impact of anything, I guess you could say, ugly about it. So just to make sure everything looks really, really clean for the customer and that they're super happy.
Yeah. So, harkening back to what we were talking about with real estate, here you see a three-dimensional drawing of a roof. This is on your website, Zach. And, you've put panels on the main south-facing portion of the roof. These green lines running from the array to the inverter, and then to the panel, that's what you would be referring to as a conduit run. You can do that inside the attic in most homes, right? So you're not seeing that conduit running across the roof, just the black panels. And we have very nice all black panels now, so quite aesthetically pleasing. The inverter could be on the side of the building, it could be on the roof, or it could be in the garage or in the mechanical room. Many options there. Let's explain for our listeners what the inverter is doing.
So the inverter is converting the DC electricity on the roof down to usable AC electricity. So it's the brains of the operation, the computer of the operation, however you want to look at it. And then that's also doing, or I guess managing the monitoring of the system. So the homeowner is able to tap into that inverter communication and see exactly what their system is producing, exactly what each panel is producing, and they can check by the minute, hour, day, week, year, all of that. So um, that's the most important part of the system. So, and that's something that we want to make sure is up and running continuously for the entire life of the system, which is typically about 25 years.
And are you installing a variety of types of equipment, or focused on any particular brands when it comes to modules and inverters?
Yeah, so inverters, we do both microinverters and centralized hybrid inverters like a solar edge inverter. And there's certain situations that call for either. Larger systems call for a solar edge inverter. Smaller systems can call for microinverters. Sometimes it's customer preference, sometimes it's our preference. Sometimes it's how the installation lands. So on the inverter side, we have both options. And on the module side of things, definitely an all black module. And we want to keep the warranty at, 25 years for both production and manufacturing warranty. And then as far as the type of module or manufacturer, that can vary year by year. We like to offer a good, better, best scenario to our clients. Ask them, hey, when you make a purchase, where do you usually fall in this category? And we'll have a module that fits their needs. Aesthetically, we really love something like a Solaria panel. They just look really, really good. A really quality, economical panel would be like a Q cell right now, and then it just changes by almost like by the day with our industry. So
Yeah, I would agree. Solaria and QCell are two very popular choices, but there's so many panel manufacturers and supply ebbs and flows, and so even though you may have a preference for a particular manufacturer, the installers just can't necessarily get a hold of any old equipment at any time. The literally a large order will wipe out what a particular manufacturer has in store or in stock. So it is on a week by week basis what is available. The good
yeah.
news is the good news is that this technology is tried and true. It's over 70 years old now. It's really mature. Uh, and most manufacturers are reaching into the 20% and low 20s of efficiency. Um, Very good warranties in terms of 20, 25-year production guarantees. At the end of life, a solar panel will be producing about 80% of what it did on day one. It's out there getting baked in the sun day in and day out, and it is degrading very slowly, but 80% at the end of life is really not bad. And we just did an episode of the Clean Power Hour talking about end of life for these panels. They can be repurposed. Uh, Taken to the less developed world is happy to use them, and so they will have a second life at the end of life, so to speak.
hmm
What else? I know you're big on education, Zach. What else should customers know about residential solar in Illinois?
That there's a lot of misconceptions about whether it even works in Illinois. So that's one of the reasons I got into this, is like just letting people know it does work here. The sun shines here. So just spreading the word about the technology, how it can benefit people. We do a lot of work like with classrooms and schools and helping to educate kids and getting involved with the community. That's just a big part of what we do is just talking about it on a daily basis, making sure people know about it. That at the end of the day is our job. As much as we install solar, we have to talk to people, make them aware of it, let them know it works, and that it's here. I mean, it's here. It's not going away, and it's only growing. As far as residential solar, I feel like if you own a house, you should be just looking at it. Talk to your local installer. Say, hey, how does this compare to what I'm doing today? Because if you're going to be in your house for at least 5 to 10 years, it's a no-brainer. It's adding some value to your house. You're doing the right thing. And we just all need to make that transition. So, and if you can't put it on your house, there's other alternatives out there like community solar. It's huge right now. So, um, trying to let people know about that too is kind of a brand new concept. So there's a solar farm nearby, and well, how does this all work? And it's kind of foreign to people, and they almost think it's one of those energy supply scams where it sounds a little fishy, but when you break it down, there's a literally a farm being built within 20 miles of here. There's 7 to 8 thousand panels on the farm, and you're going to get a small share of that, and you're going to indirectly go solar, basically supporting clean energy in the area. So there's just a lot of different options out there, and people should really start looking at them.
Yeah, I put the ComEd community solar information page on screen. If you just Google community solar and your utility, ComEd, Ameren, or Mid-American, they all have informational websites about how residents can participate in community solar. So if you don't have a sunny roof, if you don't own a home, or if you just don't want to install solar, of course, you can go the community solar route. And we're just wrapping up 111 community solar projects being installed across the state. So there is plenty of capacity for the moment. It will dry up in the next 6 months. But if you want to engage in a community solar program, by all means, you have that availability here in Illinois in this first wave of FEJA. What does the future hold for residential and community solar in Illinois, Zach?
That is a hot topic right now. So, all good things must come to an end. The Illinois incentive just sunsetted right now, and that has been just a great program for the state. All the installers here gave us a lot of momentum and deployed a lot of solar. So, all good things must come to an end, and now we're on a new chapter. So, at first, I was a little sad about it, but it's time to take things into like the next chapter, a different way of looking at it, a different way of deploying it. So right now we're just restructuring and trying to figure out what next year will look like. So that will be maybe more longer term financial agreements for residential, maybe more community solar, talking about that. People that can refinance and do a cash out there and invest that back into their system. And then, of course, we have some pending legislation here that's on the docket. And come spring, we'll find out what that looks like.
Yeah, there is, light at the end of the tunnel. We have several bills in the Illinois legislature that will add money to the incentive pool. The challenge with the FEJA program is that it pays out a little faster than it collects money, right? We're all paying for this program. If you look at your power bill, you'll see a small renewable portfolio standard fee on there, which is capped at 2% currently. And what that means is there's $235 million going into wind and solar in Illinois every year. It's not a tax, but it's a fee that all ratepayers are contributing to. And what we need to do is we need to up the amount of that fee by a small percent. We want to increase it to 4%, say. That's one of the bills that we support here at Continental is called Path to 100. You can check that out at path100.net. And not only are we going to expand the renewable portfolio standard, but then we will expand these incentives that homeowners and commercial owners can benefit from. At the end of the day, what the incentives do is it shortens the payback period. So if before we had FEJA, the payback period was maybe 12 to 15 years. FEJA shortens that to 6 to 8 years, which is a nice thing and a good thing, and it jumpstarts the industry. But frankly, once the industry just gets some momentum and people start to realize the benefits and get used to it, we can step those down a little bit. I've done some consulting in California, and the payback period in California is 8 to 10 years. They don't have SRECs anymore, and everybody wants solar. It's gone mainstream. People realize that it's just a great way to reduce your power bill and contribute to the energy transition, which, you know, everybody at the end of the day wants a more sustainable, resilient society. And so it's just not a hard sell. Here in the Midwest, we have very cheap grid power. And so
Hmm.
solar has been a little bit of a latecomer. We're about 10 years behind the coasts when it comes to solar. If you go to New Jersey or New York or California or Colorado, it's everywhere. And that's the way it's going to be here in Illinois in 10 years. So if you're interested in benefiting from clean green energy, creating clean jobs, and creating a more sustainable future for future generations, by all means check out all of the options that you have, whether it's installing solar on your home, your business, or participating in community solar. Zach, how can our listeners reach you?
So you can go to our webpage, illumenpv.com. That's ILUMEN, P as in Paul, V as in Victor.com, stands for photovoltaic. Or, Google us, Ilumen Solar. And we'll answer any time of the day, morning, night, weekends. So we're always available for our clients to either answer questions or put a design together. So always available.
Great. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you want your customers and prospects to know?
Um, kind of what I stated earlier is just if you haven't looked into solar yet, check it out. Have someone put the numbers together for you. It makes sense. It's not for everyone, and but just check it out and take a look at it. Take a look at community solar. Just try and educate yourself. It's here to stay. It's growing, so there's really no ignoring it. We're all eventually going to be solar. We're all eventually going to drive electric cars. So you might as well look at it now, and just make sure you're talking to an installer that will be around a long time, does quality work, talk to references, things like that. So that's pretty much it.
Excellent. Well, I'm Tim Montague, your host. You can reach me at cesnrg.com/videos. This is where all of our content resides. We're doing 2 to 3 interviews a week, including the solar podcast, like I did today with Zach Witt. Here you see Jake Anderson on tools for utility scale developers. Another episode on utility scale with Robert Howard at Greenleaf Advisors. Tons and tons of content on solar and storage, and the energy transition. And then also 1 episode a week of the Clean Power Hour with myself and journalist John Weaver, who is also a solar installer and developer. So check it out at cesnrg.com. You can also reach out to me on Twitter. I'm TG Montague on Twitter. Hey, Zach, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time, and let's grow solar and storage.